The Great Hall of Axis Prime stretched higher than any cathedral on Earth. Commander Elena Vasquez stood near the back, watching the Galactic Council debate humanity's fate with barely concealed contempt on their alien faces. She had been to 3 of these meetings now. Each time, the elder races treated humans like children who had wandered into an adult conversation. The Vryn representatives sat in their floating chairs, their blue skin shimmering under the artificial lights. The Kethran ambassadors clicked and hissed in their own language, not bothering to use the translation devices. The archivists, oldest of all the council races, simply watched with their 6 eyes, unreadable and distant. Ambassador Chen stood at the speaking platform, his gray suit looking plain and simple next to the elaborate robes and armor of the other delegates. He was trying to explain why humanity needed better defenses in the Outer Rim. Pirates had attacked 2 human colonies in the past year. Over 3,000 people had died. The Outer Rim territories are unstable, Chen said, his voice calm despite the hostile audience. We request permission to establish defense stations around our colony worlds. Nothing aggressive, just protection for our citizens. Lord Kesseth of the Vryn hegemony laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. His translator rendered it as a series of chiming bells, but Elena could hear the mockery underneath. Protection, Kesseth said, rising from his chair. From what? Your own inadequacy? Humanity has been part of this council for 30 years. 30 years. My civilization has existed for 400,000 of your years. We have seen species come and go. We know how to maintain peace. Peace? Elena muttered under her breath. Her escort, Lieutenant Park, touched her arm in warning. She ignored him. Chen tried again. With respect, Lord Kesseth, your civilization hasn't faced a serious threat in millennia. Our colonies are dying. You need to learn your place. Kesseth interrupted. The other council members made sounds of agreement. The doctrine of measured response has kept this galaxy stable for longer than your species has had written language. We do not build weapons of mass destruction. We do not fortify worlds like they are military bases. We resolve conflicts through limited engagement and negotiation. Limited engagement, Elena whispered. They mean they're pretty little ship battles where nobody really dies. Park squeezed her arm harder this time. She pulled away. The debate continued for another hour, but Elena already knew how it would end. She had seen this same play 3 times before. The council would vote. Humanity would lose. The elder races would pat themselves on the back for maintaining the peace, and more human colonists would die because the council refused to let them defend themselves properly. She was right. The vote was 11-1, with only Earth voting in favor of the proposal. But then Kesseth stood again. This time he wasn't laughing. There is another matter, he announced. The Vryn hegemony wishes to invoke the right of ancient territory. The hall went quiet. Even the archivists leaned forward. We have discovered historical records proving that 3 of humanity's Outer Rim colonies are built on worlds that once belonged to the Vryn Empire. These worlds, New Perth, Harmony Station, and Genesis Falls, are rightfully ours. We claim them under council law. Elena felt her blood turn to ice. Those weren't just colonies. New Perth alone had 2 million people. Her sister lived there. Her niece and nephew. Chen's face remained calm, but Elena could see his hands shaking. Those worlds have been inhabited by humans for 20 years. Our people have 72 hours to evacuate, Kesseth said, or accept Vryn governance. The council will vote on the legitimacy of our claim. The vote took less than 5 minutes. 8 in favor of the Vryn claim, 3 abstentions. 1 against. Elena didn't wait to hear the rest. She walked out of the great hall, her boots echoing on the crystal floor. Park followed her, jogging to keep up. Commander, where are you going? To my ship, Elena said, and then to New Perth. But the evacuation? There won't be an evacuation, Lieutenant. Get the crew ready. We're leaving in 1 hour. Back on the Righteous Fury, Elena stood on the bridge and stared at the encrypted message that had arrived from Earth Command. It was short, direct, and it changed everything. Stand your ground. Show them what humanity means. She read it 3 times, making sure she understood. This was it. Earth was done playing by the Council's rules. Done being the youngest species that everyone pushed around. Done watching their people die because the elder races thought humanity wasn't worth protecting. Elena thought about the Kepler incident 8 years ago. She had been a lieutenant then, stationed on a cargo ship. They had received the distress call from Kepler Colony. Pirates were attacking. Thousands of civilians were trapped. The colony begged the Council for help. The Council had debated for 6 hours. By the time they voted to send peacekeeping forces, it was too late. Elena's parents had been on Kepler, visiting her father's brother. They died waiting for help that came too slow. She had promised herself then that she would never let it happen again. Set course for New Perth, Elena ordered. Maximum speed. Commander, her tactical officer said carefully, Earth Command has designated us as a prototype vessel. Our weapon systems are classified. If we engage the Vrin, then they'll learn why humanity builds weapons like we do, Elena said. Send a message to Lord Kesseth. Tell him that New Perth is under the protection of the United Nations Space Command. Tell him that any attempt to land forces will be considered an act of war. And if he doesn't back down? Elena looked at the viewport where stars streaked past as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. Somewhere out there, her sister was putting her children to bed, not knowing that an alien empire wanted to take their home. Then he'll learn that humans don't fight like the Council races, Elena said quietly. We don't do limited engagements. We don't do ceremonial battles. When you threaten our families, we fight like our species depends on it. Because sometimes it does. The bridge was silent as they raced toward New Perth, toward a confrontation that would change the galaxy forever. The righteous fury dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Perth system. Elena stood on the bridge watching the beautiful blue and green planet rotate slowly on the main screen. 2 million people live down there. Her sister Maria taught at the university. Her nephew wanted to be a pilot. Her niece was only 5 years old. Scan for Vrin ships, Elena ordered. Nothing yet, Commander, Lieutenant Park reported. We're 12 hours ahead of their fleet. Good. Position us in high orbit above New Perth City. I want our shields at maximum and all weapons ready. Her tactical officer, Commander Williams, looked uncomfortable. All weapons, Commander? Including the classified systems? Elena turned to face her crew. 23 people staffed the Righteous Fury. All of them had volunteered for this mission. All of them knew what might happen. Yes, all weapons. If the Vrin want this world, they'll have to go through us. The ship moved into position. Elena opened a general broadcast to the planet below and to anyone listening in the system. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Nations Space Command vessel Righteous. Fury, New Perth is under our protection. Any attempt to land military forces or claim this world will be met with immediate and overwhelming response. This is our only warning. She closed the channel and waited. The colony governor called first, his face appearing on her screen. He looked terrified. Commander Vasquez, thank you for coming, but the Council has ruled. If we resist, they'll send more ships, maybe even destroy the colony. They can try, Governor. Keep your people calm. We'll handle this. Next came Admiral Torres from Earth Command. He didn't look happy. Commander, you understand what you're doing? If you fire on Council ships, there's no going back. Humanity will be at war with the Vrin hegemony, possibly the entire Council. I understand, sir. But I also understand that if we back down now, every Council race will know they can take whatever they want from us. Our colonies will never be safe. Torres was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Earth stands with you, Commander. Show them what we're capable of. But Elena, try to give them a chance to back down first. I will, sir. The Vrin fleet arrived 11 hours later. 12 ships in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like polished metal. They were beautiful, Elena had to admit. The Vrin built ships that looked like works of art, elegant curves and glowing energy fields that pulsed with soft blue light. They would have been perfect for a museum. Terrible for actual war. Lord Kesseth's face appeared on her screen. He looked amused. Commander Vasquez, I heard about your little declaration. Very dramatic, but ultimately meaningless. You have 1 ship. I have 12. Your vessel may be larger, but you cannot possibly believe you can stand against an entire fleet. I'm giving you one chance, Lord Kesseth. Turn your ships around. Leave this system. Find another world to claim. Kesseth laughed again. That same chiming sound that made Elena want to punch something. Or what, you'll shoot at us? Do you know how many ships the Vryn hegemony has destroyed in battle? 4,237. Over the course of 10,000 years. We are masters of space combat. You humans barely know how to build a proper vessel. Elena took a deep breath. She thought about her parents on Kepler. She thought about her niece probably playing in the garden right now, not knowing her life was in danger. The Council fights by rules, Elena said quietly. Limited engagement. No weapons of mass destruction. Ships that barely have enough firepower to damage each other. You treat war like a game, like a tournament with points and winners. Civilized warfare, Kesseth agreed. Something humans clearly don't understand. You're right, Elena said. We don't understand it. When humans fight, we don't aim for points. We don't try to look elegant. We fight to survive. We fight to protect our families. And we fight to win no matter the cost. Kesseth's smile faded slightly. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Please, Lord Kesseth. I don't want to do this. Turn around. Let the Council find another solution. Don't make me show you what human weapons can do. For a moment, Elena thought he might listen. She saw something flicker across his face. Not quite fear, but maybe uncertainty. Then his smile returned. Humanity has been part of the Council for 30 years. We have seen your weapons, your railguns and missiles, primitive kinetic weapons. Our shields can handle anything you have. The weapons you've seen are standard military hardware, Elena said. The Righteous Fury is not a standard vessel. Please, last chance. Kesseth cut the transmission. A moment later, the Vryn fleet moved forward in attack formation. Energy weapons began charging, creating visible distortions in space. They're targeting us, Williams reported. 12 ships, all weapons armed. Elena's hands were steady as she gripped the command chair. She had trained for this, prepared for this, but she had hoped it wouldn't come. Shields to maximum. Prepare all weapon systems. Commander, Park said quietly. Once we do this... I know, Lieutenant, I know. The Vryn ships fired first. 12 beams of concentrated energy lanced through space and struck the Righteous Fury's shields. The ship shuddered. Warning lights flashed on the tactical display. Shields at 87%, Williams reported. They're charging for another volley. Elena stood up. Her next words would change everything. Would maybe start a war that could destroy humanity. But if she backed down now, her niece would grow up under Vryn rule. If she grew up at all. Computer, I am Commander Elena Vasquez, authorization code Vasquez Alpha 7. Release safety protocols on all classified weapon systems. Remove all limiters. The computer beeped in acknowledgement. Around the ship, massive armor plates began to shift and retract. Hidden weapon ports opened. Systems that had been designed by humanity's best military engineers, systems that violated every council law about warfare, came online. Weapons free, Elena said. Target the flagship first. Let's teach them what overwhelming force actually means. The bridge crew worked quickly. They had drilled for this. They knew what to do. Railgun systems charged and ready. Missile pods armed. Hunter-killers deployed. Point defense grid active. Relativistic kill vehicle prepared for launch. Elena opened one more channel to Kesseth. His face appeared on her screen, still smiling confidently. Last chance, she said. He laughed again. Elena closed the channel. She thought about her parents. She thought about her niece. She thought about every human colonist who had died because the Council thought humanity wasn't worth protecting. Fire, she said. The Righteous Fury transformed from a ship into a weapon. Railguns accelerated tungsten rounds to a significant fraction of light speed. Each round carried more kinetic energy than nuclear weapons. Missile pods launched hundreds of self-guided warheads. Point defense lasers created a web of destruction around the ship. The Vryn flagship's shields lasted 3 seconds. The elegant hull lasted 2 more. Lord Kesseth's laugh died as his ship died around him. The battle lasted 17 minutes. Elena watched the tactical display as the Vryn fleet died. It wasn't a fight. It was an execution. The elegant ships that had won thousands of ceremonial battles over millennia were torn apart by weapons designed for total war. The second Vryn ship tried to evade. The hunter-killer missiles followed it, their artificial intelligence calculating trajectories faster than any organic mind could process. The ship's shields flickered and failed. The hull breached in 47 places simultaneously. 3 Vryn ships attempted to form a defensive formation. The Righteous Fury's railguns fired again. The tungsten rounds punched through the first ship, continued through the second ship, and damaged the third. At relativistic speeds, there was no armor thick enough, no shield strong enough. Incoming transmission from the Vryn fleet, Park reported. Multiple ships requesting permission to surrender. Elena's hand hovered over the control to cease fire. Part of her, the part that still believed in mercy, wanted to accept. The Vryn had learned their lesson. They were beaten. Then her tactical display lit up with new contacts. "Commander," Williams said urgently, "Vryn ground forces are landing on New Perth. 3 transport ships just entered the atmosphere. They're heading for the capital city." Elena's blood went cold. "Where?" "The University District. Residential areas. They're not hitting military targets. They're going after civilians." Her sister taught at the university. Her niece's school was 2 blocks away. "Can we target the transports? Not without risking civilian casualties. They're too close to populated areas." Elena stared at the tactical display. On one screen, Vryn ships were begging to surrender. On another screen, Vryn soldiers were landing in her sister's neighborhood. The Council's doctrine of measured response never prepared them for this kind of situation. Their wars were clean, organized, limited. Human wars were never clean. "Commander," Park said quietly, "what are your orders?" Elena sat back down in her command chair. Her hands were shaking now. She thought about all her training at the academy, all the ethics classes about proportional response and rules of engagement, all the discussions about what made humanity better than its enemies. Then, she thought about her 5-year-old niece hiding under a desk while alien soldiers walked through her school. Where is the Vryn staging world? The planet they're launching these attacks from? Williams checked his display. Thyraxis. It's their primary military command center for this sector. Population 40 million. Mostly military personnel and their families. It's 3 light hours from here. 40 million. Mostly military, but families too. Children, civilians. People who had nothing to do with this war except being born in the wrong empire. "Commander?" Park asked. Elena closed her eyes. She could still stop this. Accept the Vryn surrender. Use the ship's weapons to carefully target the ground forces on New Perth. Follow the rules. Be the better person. But the rules hadn't saved her parents on Kepler. The rules hadn't protected human colonies. The rules were designed by elder races who had forgotten what real war looked like. "Load the relativistic kill vehicle," Elena said quietly. "Target Thyraxis." The bridge went silent. Even Williams, who had helped design the RKV, looked shocked. "Commander," he said carefully, "that weapon is theoretical. We've never tested it in actual combat. And the target, 40 million people. They're attacking our civilians right now," Elena said. "My sister is down there, my niece. They want to teach us a lesson about respecting the Council? Let's teach them one about threatening humanity." "Elena," Park used her first name, which he never did. "This is genocide. This isn't defense. This is revenge." He was right. Elena knew he was right. But she also knew that if she didn't do something decisive right now, the Vryn would just send more ships, more troops. They would take New Perth eventually, and then Harmony Station, and then Genesis Falls. They would keep taking until humanity had nothing left, unless humanity proved that the cost of taking human worlds was too high. "The RKV is loaded and ready," Williams reported quietly. Elena stood up and walked to the window. She could see New Perth below, beautiful and blue. Somewhere down there, people were dying because the Council thought humans weren't important enough to protect. She opened a channel to the remaining Vryn ships. 8 of the original 12 were still intact, though all were damaged. "This is Commander Vasquez. You came to this system to take our world. You thought we were weak. You thought our weapons were primitive. You were wrong. What happens next is not what I want. But you need to understand something about humanity. When you threaten our families, there is no limit to what we will do. There is no line we won't cross. There is no price we won't pay." She nodded to Williams. He looked sick as he entered the launch codes. The relativistic kill vehicle launched from the Righteous Fury. It was simple in concept. A 200-ton projectile accelerated by magnetic rails to 90% of light speed. No explosives needed. No warhead, just mass and velocity. Physics did the rest. The RKV crossed 3 light hours of space in a little over 3 hours. The Vryn must have detected it. They must have tried to intercept it. But you cannot stop something moving at 90% of light speed. You cannot build a shield strong enough. You cannot dodge. When the RKV struck Thyraxis, it released energy equivalent to multiple gigatons of TNT. The impact site vaporized instantly. The shockwave radiated outward at supersonic speeds, leveling everything for hundreds of kilometers. The planet's crust fractured. Magma erupted from deep underground. The atmosphere ignited from the heat. Elena watched the sensor data as a world died. 40 million lives ended in seconds. 40 million people who woke up that morning not knowing that a human they had never met would kill them before sunset. The Vryn fleet stopped fighting. They just stopped. Their ships hung in space, silent and still. "Commander." Park's voice was hollow. "The ground forces on New Perth are surrendering. They're requesting immediate evacuation." "Grant it," Elena said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, distant like someone else was speaking. "Let them leave. The battle is over." News of Thyraxis spread across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. The Galactic Council emergency session convened within hours. Elena watched the broadcast from her ready room. She saw alien faces expressing horror and outrage. She saw Ambassador Chen standing alone, trying to defend the indefensible. Admiral Torres called. He didn't look angry. He looked sad. "Elena, what have you done?" "What I had to," she said. But even she didn't believe that anymore. "Earth Command is recalling you. There will be an inquiry, probably a trial." "I understand, sir." "Did it work?" Torres asked quietly. "Did you save the colonies?" Elena pulled up the tactical map. Vryn ships were retreating from all human territories. Other council races were pulling back their fleets. Reports were coming in of emergency meetings and defensive preparations across the galaxy. "Yes," Elena said. "They're afraid of us now. They won't touch our colonies. They won't underestimate us again. And the price." Elena looked at her hands. They were steady again. She had stopped shaking. She wondered if that was worse. 40 million lives, and whatever's left of my soul. After Torres disconnected, Elena sat alone in the dark. She could hear her crew working outside, securing the ship, checking systems. They were avoiding her. She didn't blame them. She pulled up a picture on her tablet. Her niece, smiling at the camera, missing her front teeth. Safe now. Safe because of what Elena had done. She wondered if that would be enough when she closed her eyes at night. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Representatives from all 12 elder races sat in their designated areas. But now there were also observers. Military commanders, intelligence officers, security forces. Everyone wanted to see what would happen to humanity. Ambassador Chen stood at the speaking platform alone. Behind him, holographic displays showed the destruction of Thyraxis. The images played on repeat. 40 million lives reduced to ash and molten rock. Lord Kesseth had survived. His escape pod had been recovered by another Vryn ship. He sat in the Vryn section now, his blue skin darker than normal, his eyes filled with something humans would recognize as hatred. Genocide. The Kethran ambassador clicked and hissed. The translator rendered it in cold mechanical tones. Humanity has committed genocide. They have violated every principle the Council stands for. They must be punished. Other voices joined in. Calls for sanctions. Demands that Earth be blockaded. Some even suggested humanity should be expelled from the Council, their colonies seized, their species confined to their home system. Chen listened to it all with a calm expression. But his hands gripped the podium tightly. Finally, the archivist prime speaker raised one of her 6 hands. The chamber fell silent. The archivists were the oldest species in the Council, the founders of the doctrine of measured response. When they spoke, everyone listened. "We have reviewed the incident," the archivist said. Her translator voice was emotionless. "Humanity destroyed a military staging world during an active conflict. 40 million Vryn died. This is a tragedy. But we must ask the question no one wants to discuss. How did we reach this point?" "They attacked us!" Kesseth shouted. "We were following Council law. We had the right to claim those worlds." "You did," the archivist agreed. "But did you consider the consequences? Humanity told us they needed defenses. We refused. Humanity warned us their people were in danger. We ignored them. Then you gave them 72 hours to abandon their colonies or accept your rule. What did you think they would do? We expected them to follow council law, Kesseth said. No, the archivist said. You expected them to be weak, to accept whatever we decided because they are the youngest species. You never considered that they might fight back, because we have all forgotten what real war looks like. The chamber erupted in angry voices. The archivist raised another hand and silence fell again. Humanity committed an atrocity. This cannot be denied, but we must also acknowledge our role in creating the situation. For millennia, the Council has fought ceremonial battles, limited engagements, wars with rules and honor and minimal casualties. We forgot that war was ever different. We forgot that some species still remember how to fight for survival. Chen cleared his throat. If I may speak? The archivist gestured for him to continue. Humanity does not excuse what Commander Vasquez did, Chen said. His voice was steady but strained. We are horrified by the loss of life. We will hold her accountable under our own laws. But the archivist is correct. We told you we needed to protect our colonies. You refused. We warned you that we would not abandon our people. You ignored us. What happened at Thyraxis is a tragedy. What would have happened to 2 million humans on New Perth if we had done nothing? Would that have been better? Yes, several voices shouted. You should have evacuated. You should have followed the law. And the next time? Chen asked. When you decide you want another human world? And another? How many times should we evacuate? How many times should we give up our homes because the Council decides we don't deserve them? No one had an answer for that. The debates continued for days. Intelligence reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human weapons technology was far more advanced than anyone had realized. The Righteous Fury was one of 12 similar vessels. Earth had nuclear weapons stockpiled in quantities that terrified the Council. Kinetic weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons, theoretical weapons that violated every rule the Council had established. The elder races began to understand. They had built beautiful ships and elegant weapons for ceremonial combat. Humanity had built weapons designed to destroy worlds and exterminate species. Because humans remembered what the elder races had forgotten, sometimes the only way to survive was to make your enemies fear you more than they wanted to defeat you. Within Earth's government, the arguments were just as fierce. President Amari addressed the United Nations Assembly in Geneva. The chamber was packed with representatives, military officers, and protesters on both sides. What Commander Vasquez did was wrong, Amari said. 40 million people are dead. We cannot pretend this was necessary. We cannot claim this was justified. But we also cannot ignore the reality. Our colonies are safe now. The Council has stopped threatening us. Other species that were planning to expand into human territory have withdrawn. What does that tell us? That we're monsters, someone shouted from the gallery. That we've become the thing we always feared. Or that we're survivors, a general countered. That we're willing to do what it takes to protect humanity. The debate raged for weeks. But quietly behind the scenes, something else was happening. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive were now sending diplomatic envoys to Earth. Not to condemn, but to understand. Not to threaten, but to negotiate. The Vryn hegemony fractured. Some wanted revenge, wanted to mobilize their full military and crush humanity. But others remembered what happened to Thyraxis. They remembered how easily the Righteous Fury had destroyed their fleet. They asked themselves if revenge was worth risking their home worlds. The fracture turned into a civil war within weeks. The Vryn were too busy fighting themselves to threaten anyone else. Other Council species watched and learned. They began upgrading their defenses, not to attack humanity, but because humanity had reminded them that the galaxy was not as safe as they had believed. The doctrine of measured response had made them complacent, weak. Humanity had shown them what a species that never stopped preparing for war could do. 6 months after Thyraxis, the archivist prime speaker requested a private meeting with Ambassador Chen. They met in a secure room on Axis Prime, just the two of them. The Council is changing, the archivist said. Whether we wanted to or not, your species has forced us to remember things we tried to forget. That war is not a game. That survival sometimes requires terrible choices. Are you thanking me or condemning me? Chen asked tiredly. Both. Neither. I am acknowledging reality. The doctrine of measured response worked because all species agreed to follow it. But it only worked as long as everyone was equally weak. Humanity is not weak. And now that we know that, we cannot unknow it. So what happens now? Now we adapt. The Council will reform. We will create a new framework. One that acknowledges the reality of total war, even as we try to prevent it. One that recognizes that deterrence requires more than elegant ships and ceremonial battles. And Commander Vasquez? The archivist was quiet for a moment. She made a terrible choice, but she also saved her people. History will argue forever about whether she was a war criminal or a hero. Perhaps she was both. She'll stand trial on Earth, Chen said. She's already requested it. She wants to face judgment for what she did. That is more than most leaders would do. Most would justify their actions, claim they had no choice. She accepts responsibility. Does that make it better? No, the archivist said. But it makes her human, in the best and worst ways. Back on Earth, Elena Vasquez sat in a detention cell waiting for her trial. She had refused all military lawyers, all attempts to defend her. She would stand before a jury and tell them the truth, that she destroyed a world to save her people, that she would do it again if she had to, that she believed it was necessary, and that she would never forgive herself for it. The galaxy was learning to fear humanity. Now came the harder part, learning to live with that fear, and teaching humanity to live with what they had become. 6 months had passed since Thraxis. The galaxy looked different now. The Vryn hegemony no longer existed as a unified government. The species had split into 3 separate factions, each claiming to represent the true Vryn people. They were too busy fighting each other to threaten anyone else. Historians would later call it the Great Fracture. The Vryn called it the Time of Shame. 4 council species had completely restructured their military forces. The elegant ceremonial ships were being retrofitted with real weapons. Real shields, real armor, not to attack humanity, but because humanity had reminded them that the universe was dangerous. The doctrine of measured response only worked when everyone was equally weak. That time had ended. 2 species had left the council entirely, claiming they wanted no part of a galaxy where weapons like the relativistic kill vehicle existed. No one tried to stop them. Elena Vasquez stood in the courtroom on Earth wearing a simple gray prison uniform. The trial had lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution had presented evidence of 40 million deaths. The defense had presented context about the attack on New Perth, about the council's refusal to protect human colonies, about the impossible choices facing a commander trying to save her people. The jury deliberated for 4 days. On the charge of excessive use of force resulting in mass casualties, the judge read, "We find the defendant guilty." Elena showed no emotion. She had known this was coming. She had asked for it. On the charge of violation of the laws of war, the judge continued, "We find the defendant guilty." More charges, more guilty verdicts. Elena accepted each one with a small nod. But then came the part that surprised everyone. However, the judge said, the court acknowledges the extraordinary circumstances. The defendant acted under orders from Earth Command. The defendant was protecting human lives from an imminent threat. The defendant's actions, while criminal under current law, may have prevented a larger war. Therefore, this court rejects the prosecution's request for execution or life imprisonment. The courtroom erupted. Half the spectators cheered. Half shouted in anger. "Elena Vasquez, you are hereby sentenced to permanent exile and mandatory service. You will be transported to Settlement Omega-7, where survivors from Thraxis have been relocated. You will spend the remainder of your life in service to those you orphaned. You will help rebuild what you destroyed. This is not redemption. You cannot undo what you did, but perhaps you can make it mean something." Elena closed her eyes. Exile to live among the people she had nearly exterminated. It was worse than execution. It was justice. "I accept the sentence," she said quietly. 2 months later, Elena stood on the surface of a planet that didn't have a name yet. Settlement Omega-7 was what Earth called it. The Vryn refugees called it New Beginning. It wasn't much yet. Prefabricated shelters, basic infrastructure, 40,000 Vryn survivors trying to build a new life. They all knew who Elena was. They all knew what she had done. The colony administrator was a Vryn named Thessia. She had lost her family on Thraxis, her mate, her children, everything. "Why did they send you here?" Thessia asked when Elena arrived. "Do they think this is punishment? That we will kill you?" "Maybe," Elena said. "Or maybe they think I need to see what I did. Really see it. Not just numbers on a screen." And if we do kill you, then I deserve it. Thessia stared at her for a long moment. Then she turned away. You will work in the education center. We need teachers. The children need to learn both Vryn and human languages if we are to survive in this new galaxy. So Elena taught. She spent her days with Vryn children who had lost parents, siblings, homes. She taught them mathematics and language and history, and they taught her what she had taken from them. One student, a young Vryn named Keller, asked her one day, "Why did you kill my mother?" Helena could have explained, could have talked about military necessity and impossible choices in protecting her own family. Instead, she just said, "Because I thought it was the only way to save my people. I was wrong. I am sorry." Will being sorry bring her back? No, then why say it? Because it's all I have to give you, and because you deserve to hear it. Keller thought about this. Then he went back to his lessons. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. While Elena built a new life among her former enemies, the Galactic Council was transforming. Ambassador Chen had been elected as the new Secretary General, the first human to hold the position. His first act was to dissolve the doctrine of measured response. It served us well for millennia, Chen said in his inaugural address, but it only worked because we all agreed to be weak together. That time has ended. We must acknowledge the reality of total war, even as we work to prevent it. The new framework was called the Accord of Mutual Assured Survival. Every species would be allowed to develop whatever weapons they deemed necessary for defense. But in exchange, they would agree to mutual defense pacts. An attack on one would be considered an attack on all. It was a cold peace, armed and dangerous, but it was stable. Because every species now understood that starting a war could mean losing everything. Human military advisors were stationed throughout Council space. Not as conquerors, but as teachers. Species that had fought ceremonial battles for millennia now learned about logistics, strategy, and the brutal calculus of real warfare. Some resented it. Others accepted it as necessary. Humanity's position in the galaxy had transformed completely. No longer the youngest species that everyone pushed around. No longer dismissed as primitive or weak. Now they were the wardens. The species that everyone feared and no one wanted to anger. The UNSC grew from a small defense force into the galaxy's nuclear option. 12 dreadnoughts like the Righteous Fury, now officially designated planet crackers. Everyone knew they existed. No one wanted to find out what they could do. A new captain stood on the bridge of the UNSC Tempered Justice, the newest vessel in the fleet. Captain Maria Vasquez, Elena's younger sister, looked at the orders she had just received. Stand ready. Protect human colonies. Deter aggression through strength. But there was a new addendum that hadn't existed before. One line added by Secretary General Chen himself. Show strength. Show mercy. Remember the price of both. Maria thought about her sister teaching Vryn children on a distant colony world. Elena sent letters sometimes. They were full of small details. A student who learned to read. A refugee who smiled for the first time since Thyraxis. A garden that was starting to grow. Elena never mentioned forgiveness. Never claimed redemption. She just did the work day after day trying to make meaning from atrocity. The last letter had included a picture. Elena standing with her students, all species human and Vryn together. Elena looked older now, tired but not defeated. I cannot undo what I did, Elena had written. But I can try to make sure the next generation doesn't have to make the same choices. I teach them that strength without mercy is cruelty. But mercy without strength is weakness. They need to learn both. We all do. Maria folded the letter and looked out at the stars. The galaxy had learned that humanity fights like demons when threatened. That lesson had cost 40 million lives. Now came the harder lesson. Learning to live with demons who were trying to be better than their worst impulses. The Galactic Council would meet next week. There would be debates about territory and resources and the same old problems that had always existed. But now there was a difference. Everyone came to the table knowing that war was possible. Real war, total war, the kind that could destroy worlds. And because everyone knew it was possible, everyone worked harder to prevent it. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, Maria thought. Not the weapons, not the fear, but the knowledge that peace was fragile, that survival required vigilance, and that sometimes the price of civilization was remembering what you were capable of becoming. The tempered justice moved through space, a promise and a warning. Behind it, humanity's colonies thrived, finally safe, Around it, the council species built new defenses and forged new alliances. And on a distant world, Elena Vasquez taught children that strength and mercy were not opposites but two sides of the same coin. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity. Now humanity had to learn to live with what that meant, to be strong enough to protect, wise enough to restrain, and brave enough to face the consequences of both. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something, a new beginning built on the ashes of the old. A galaxy that understood that peace required both the will to fight and the wisdom to choose not to. And sometimes that had to be enough.